How many times have we really tried to fix somebody else? And in our process, we become judgmental, critical, thinking we're the only ones who's right, and that we don't have any problems at all. I don't do anything wrong. I don't know about you, but I do. Just that on that same book sale, one of the things that happened is we set up the tables, and we, instead of going with one table, we were going to go with two that time. And I was trying to tell my husband how I thought the table should be set up. We were short on time, and he had his own idea. And he gave me this look that said, "Woman, you're stepping in here. Why don't you just step back and wait and see what happens?" That all came in one look. You need to look at your own husband, too, and figure out what he's saying with his looks or his comments. And as I stepped back and I watched, and I just stood back there and watched him do it, he had an awesome idea. And it worked out well throughout the whole conference. We could really show more books, plus we could interact more with the people. It was a great idea. I didn't come up with that. He did. But if I insisted on my own way, all we were going to do was have an argument and a fight. Because if I thought he was doing it wrong, he'd probably just say, "Okay, you do it," or else he'd get mad at me and we wouldn't talk. And that's not a good way to try to greet people. So there's really two things I want to share with you. Two of the golden rules of criticism. First off, criticism may change things in the short term. In other words, he might have put the tables like I wanted them in the short term. But it usually at the cost of intimacy or closeness in that relationship. You put a distance between you when you insist on your own way. Is your way better? Possibly. But does it really matter on something simple like where the tables go at a book sale? Or which line you stand in at Walmart? Does it really, really matter? Isn't your relationship more important than those things? I know mine is. And yes, but Joyce, they just build up. Well, let me talk about that as we go on through this video. What's the second thing? Criticism often leads to dishonesty. If you criticize the fact he's eating too much junk food, might start eating it at home, but he will eat it at work. Or else he will keep on getting snack foods and stop by the fast food place on the way home. Or he'll go out and eat it for lunch. We tend to hide things. And so we don't want to build up dishonesty either. We want to be honest with each other, and we want to be open with each other, and we want the intimacy to be close. Remember that the Bible says that when we try to look that speck out of our other person's eye, it's kind of like pointing a finger at someone. You heard this said, and you've got all these fingers pointing back at you. That person, but really this is the person that's the problem, this one right here. And you know what? The only great thing about out of my comment like that at the book sale, try where the tables were to go, was that I could share it with other people. That even after 42 years of marriage, I sometimes still will criticize my husband and the way he's doing things. It's not good. But the minute I step back, then our relationship improved. Yours will too. So what do? Let's talk about this and what are 6 different steps we can do to take care of criticizing. But let me just remind you of this. The more you criticize, the more I criticize, the unhappier we'll be. Because all we're looking for is the negatives. And it's been shown that when we look for the negatives, we will see more negatives. When we look for the positives, we will see more positives. Why? Because our brain tunes on this little switch up here. Maybe you don't have one in your head. I got one in my curly hair. Anyway, brain tunes on to what we need to focus on. And whatever we're looking for is what we see. You know, here's a good example of that. Maybe we've got one place where we used to live in central Texas. They had this highway that went right down through town, and on both sides of the freeway were tons, every kind of fast food restaurant and restaurant you want, all down the whole thing. When I wasn't hungry, I could drive down there and I wouldn't see a single fast food restaurant. When I was hungry, I started seeing all my favorites. Just went down on this side and on that side of the road. In other words, what I was looking for because I was hungry, maybe that's what I saw. You know, you can walk past a beautiful place outside, or maybe even in the concrete, and you see a little tiny flower. But if you aren't looking for the beauty, you won't see that little tiny flower growing up through the cracks in the concrete. You know, the same thing goes when you're disciplining children. If you're criticizing them all the time and not looking for the good things, all you're seeing is the negative things they do. When you start praising them for the good things, then they do more of those things. So what can we do about changing our critical behavior? First off, we need to be realistic. Here's some examples, gals. Remember that you've got two separate people trying to come together, raised in different homes, one male, one female, raised in two different homes, two different backgrounds. Who knows what else is different? Maybe two different parts of the country, maybe even two different faiths. And they come together and they try to make this union and this team that works together as a marriage. But they've got, even so, you see here that my two hands will come together. I still have two separate hands. We're just learning to work together like an orchestra works together in harmony. So we have to learn how to put the two parts together. So what can we do? Be realistic. One gal, she got upset because her husband was always dropping things off in the kitchen. I said, so what can you do about that? She said, I don't know. I've been yelling at him to stop getting his stuff all over my kitchen. I said, well, if it's your kitchen, take ownership of your kitchen and clean up your kitchen. Make it look the way you want to. And when he puts his stuff on the kitchen counter, just pick it up, you don't have to say anything, and set it on the kitchen table. Or put it back over on his side of the bed or his chair or wherever. But keep your kitchen looking nice. You don't have to say anything. He'll start to get the idea. But you've done it with your actions and not with your words. Our words can be so harmful. And believe me, rolling your eyes and turning your head this way, that's just as bad as words, okay? Bad. You know, like you say to your kids, stop rolling your eyes at me. We do it to our husbands too. And I'm not telling you the husbands don't do it back to us, but believe me, the Bible says, do unto others as you have to do unto you. And we need to start somewhere. So you be the one to stop criticizing. Will it stop him? I think so, eventually, as you learn how to deal with it. So, watch your expectations. Maybe it's socks on the bedroom floor, and he always leaves the socks on the floor. And you've got several options. You can yell at him about the socks being on the floor, or how he's not being a good example for the kids, or why doesn't he have to do this, or why doesn't he ever do that. What person wants to get in bed and make love or be romantic with somebody that's complaining at him all the time and tells them they can't do anything right? I know it goes both ways, gals, but it's got to start somewhere. When we start the process, it does start a snowball, and other people, our husbands in particular, will start to get into the habit, and they'll start to respond. So what do you have a choice? I suggest you mention it one time, honey, and tell him how you feel. I really don't feel good, and I feel kind of disrespected when you leave your socks in the middle of the floor. Would it be a problem for you to put them in the laundry basket? Do I need to move the laundry basket to make it more easy for you, or maybe, you know, what can I do to help you with picking up the socks? And he might say nothing, or he might be like my husband. Well, you could just pick them up yourself. That's what my husband said. Fortunately, he doesn't leave his socks in the middle of the floor, but I could pick them up myself. And that's usually often what happens, because it's not worth it. It's not worth harming this harmony, tearing apart this harmony in our relationship over some socks on the floor. Gals, pick your battles. Socks on the floor is not that big a deal. Somebody else was arguing with their husband about the way he put the dishes in the dishwasher. Well, maybe it was an issue, but he always, you know, and if so, if you complain about it and tell him he's not doing it right, he's probably not going to try to do it at all. That's the most normal thing. People back up when you do that, or they start criticizing you about something. Look for what you can change. What can you change, and what can you accept? And this is really something that's key. Watch your expectations. Realize they're going to be human. They're going to do things that aren't real. No. Then the next thing we need to do, that's number one. This is 6 things you can do to stop criticizing. Number 2, look for the positives. Look for what they're doing right. This, as I said before, really compound. Say, loading the dishwasher. Thank you so much, honey, for loading the dishwasher. Now, you could gently say one time, honey, you know, when you turn the dirty side of the dishwasher, the dishes, away from the water that's coming out of the bottom, it doesn't wash all that food off. Do you want me to rinse them more before we put them in, or would you mind turning them so that the water comes out? Now, if you say it once, That's one of the things you can do, is tell him one time. After that, you either appreciate the fact he's putting the dishes in the dishwasher and you rinse them off more thoroughly, or you wash them again later. Or you tell him, no, I don't want you doing the dishes. I'm going to do it all myself. Remember, every time you criticize him, you're probably dumping more work on yourself, because he'll just stop doing it. Same thing with the kids. We criticize them. It's setting up ways to get the work done and doing it in love. Do you know that it takes 5 positives, research has shown, to counteract 1 negative? I've even heard at times, sometimes it takes 10 positives to counteract a negative, particularly if your love language is words of affirmation. 5 positives. When was the last time you said a positive to your husband? I know I find them sometimes hard to say, but to compliment him on what he's done, to thank him for what he's done. My husband's put in tons of work on our yard lately. We've had lots of rain and lots of things falling. With the epic snow and ice we had here in Texas, we had lots more company. We have trees and bushes and shrubs that have died with that epic snow and ice. And my husband's been working hard in the yard. And sometimes I want to criticize him because of how hard he works, and he wears himself out. But you know what? I really appreciate the work he's done. If he's going to wear himself out, that's okay. He wants to wear himself out. I appreciate the work he's done. And as time goes on, just the other day, my husband had worked earlier this week, my husband had worked a lot in the yard in the morning, and then he went out and did a bigger activity in the afternoon too. And when it got to the next day, that was on Monday, and on Tuesday, he said, I should have taken a nap on Monday. Yeah, but he didn't need me saying it. Me saying it is like him getting a mama. He already had a mama. He's a man now. He's an adult man. I've been married to him 42 years. He can make his own decisions. And when it definitely injures him or hurts him, I have said such things as, honey, when you do that, you are so worn out at night that you don't want to spend any time with me. And I really miss having time with you. So here on this day, usually on our dates, I would like to feel like you were being able to spend time with me and that you weren't worn out. Now the same thing turns around. I have to make sure that I don't get myself worn out for a date because I want to spend time with him.